Hello, ranchers, and welcome to Mindfulness with Marcia. You know, getting back into the swing of school, well, it can be a really exciting time. And this year, with the pandemic going on, well, there's this whole other layer of what we might call anxiety for the unknown, not just for our kids, but also for our staff. And one known truth that often bubbles up with students as school begins is, am I really a good person? Or sometimes that negative brain bias puts it in different words like, I'm not really a good person. And for many of us, not just our young people, perhaps the hardest thing of all is to believe that I'm a good person. Really, I'm a good person. We can climb mountains, we can work hard, acquire many skills, act ethically, but truly to feel that one is good deep down in, not so much sometimes. I know I have had my moments, especially lately, I think, with just so much unknown that we're dealing with this pandemic, where there is this questioning of myself, the question of the certainty of my own self-worth or capacity to be a good person. Now, we're not going to be looking at this from a spiritual aspect. For me and, my Christianity, I know that I'm God's child. I get all of that. I'm talking about that eroding brain. I've talked before about our brain bias, that negative bias that those old tapes or those old NPRs get to playing, and we start to say, am I really a good person, or am I just sort of a sham? And it's clear in life that whether in school or later in adulthood, shamings, moral indictments, sometimes, unfortunately, chastisement in religion, well, and other criticisms that come in many shapes and sizes, they start to bombard us. And they feed right into that negative brain bias. And we get to feeling morally compromised and the essence of not being a good person. Well, it's fed related through these different experiences of worthlessness and inadequacy. And some would even say feeling like you're the runt of the litter, the black sheep of the family, I used to hear when I was a kid. I've also known people, including myself, who have done some bad things, or maybe said them, or thought of them, and then thought, gosh, I even had this thought. Does that make me a bad person? And this can also add to that personal negative bias of unworthiness. So again, without going down the spiritual path, I want to simply use some ideas for our mindful living journey as if our thoughts sometimes have like three parts. One part says, you're not good, Marcia. Another part says, Marcia, you're good. And then there's that third part that I often identify with, listens to those other two. And what do you know? The problem is that critical, dismissive, shaming voice, well, it's always louder. And it's also more encouraging and more valuing to that negative bias. So we listen to it more often and with more intensity. So we're going to pause this week and reaffirm our goodness. Here's a couple of ideas I like to use. First one, recognizing your acts of thought, word, and deed that are good. These could include stopping and putting the brakes on anger when you really want to be mad, restraining from addictive impulses, extending compassion and helpfulness to others, grit and determination, like, okay, there's this pandemic here, but I'm going to get through it. We've talked about loving kindness to ourselves and others. Maybe it's courage to do something that we haven't been able to do for a while, and we're going to just gut through it and get it done. patience. And you know what? Even positive intentions, we've talked about sometimes they don't always turn out the way we want, but setting positive intentions in the morning also verifies that goodness that's within us. A willingness to see and even name the truth, whatever it is during this time of political unrest and all of those things. Those are all things that you can recognize of acts of goodness in your thought, word, or deed. Or number two, how about taking in the good of feeling cared for or cared about? When you have a chance and you know that you've been seen, you've been listened to, appreciated, liked, valued for who you are, or even loved, well, take a few seconds or a dozen seconds or more and savor the experience. Remember, our brain likes that negative bias, but when we savor and stay on and focus for a while on those positive things, it fills our mind, it fills our body, and it starts to sink deeper and deeper into who we are. Remember how important those positive thoughts are in overcoming our biased brain. And third, daily I write in a gratitude journal, and I list even the littlest things I'm grateful for at that moment. But one of my favorite jottings lately seems to be about seeing the goodness in others. You know, recognizing goodness in others will help you feel your own goodness. There's just something beautiful and amazing about observing these small acts of fairness or kindness or even honorable efforts in others. Makes you feel better about yourself, makes you feel good. Yep, there are so many more ideas to take pause and reflect and build your own sense of feeling and goodness. Yeah, I shouldn't say yeah. Yes, you are a good person, really. And remember, you've chosen to work at the ranch to provide hope and healing for our most amazingly complex and beautiful kids, right? Acknowledge that goodness. Until next we visit, please stay safe and be well.